It's 2 a.m. You're outside. No streetlights, no phone, just darkness and the sound of the forest around you. And then you hear it, a low, hollow sound coming from somewhere above you. You can't see where. You scan the trees. Nothing. The sound stops. And then, silently, something large moves through the dark directly over your head. You never heard it coming. That's the thing about owls. They don't announce themselves. They don't rustle. They don't snap branches. They appear and they disappear. And for most of human history, that was one of the most terrifying things imaginable. So why did ancient humans fear owls? The short answer is they couldn't explain them. The long answer tells you everything about how the human mind works. Let's start with what owls actually are.
Owls are some of the most perfectly engineered predators on Earth. Their feathers have serrated edges that break up turbulence, making their flight almost completely silent. Their facial discs are shaped like satellite dishes, funneling sound toward their ears with extraordinary precision. Some species can hear a mouse moving under a foot of snow. Their eyes are fixed in their skulls, which is why they rotate their heads. And those eyes gather light so efficiently that owls can see in conditions that are, to humans, effectively total darkness. They are built to operate in exactly the environment where humans are most vulnerable, nighttime. For 300,000 years, humans didn't have lights. When the sun went down, the world went black, and the dark wasn't peaceful. It was where predators lived. Lions hunt at night. Leopards hunt at night. Everything that wanted to eat you became more dangerous after sunset. So the human brain developed a very specific response to darkness, heightened alertness, amplified sound sensitivity, a hair-trigger fear response to anything unexpected. And then an owl screams. If you've never heard a barn owl screech at close range, it's genuinely difficult to describe. It doesn't sound like a bird. It sounds like something between a woman screaming and a demon being dragged backward through a keyhole. Ancient humans heard that sound in total darkness, with no explanation for what made it. And their brains did exactly what brains are designed to do. They pattern matched it to danger. Here's where it gets deeper. Owls don't just sound wrong, they look wrong. And that wrongness is deeply specific.
The human brain is wired to read faces. It's one of our most powerful survival tools. You can detect anger, deception, sickness, or threat from a face in milliseconds. And owl faces trigger this system in a very unusual way. The forward-facing eyes, the flat facial disc, the fixed, unblinking stare. Owls have the rough geometry of a human face, but with everything slightly off, too still, too wide, too perfectly aimed at you. Psychologists call this the uncanny valley. Things that are almost human but not quite human trigger a deep, instinctive unease. Owls sit right in that zone. They look like something wearing a face, something that understands you but isn't you, and they're watching you from the dark. In virtually every ancient culture on Earth, independently, owls became symbols of death, not bad luck, not misfortune, death specifically. The ancient Romans called the owl the bird of ill omen. When Julius Caesar was assassinated, Roman historians recorded that owls had been screaming in the streets for days before. The ancient Egyptians associated owls with the underworld, with passage between the living and the dead. Mesopotamian mythology had Lilith, a demon of the night, depicted with owl feet and owl companions. Native American tribes across the continent, many with no contact with each other, developed strikingly similar beliefs that owls carried messages from the dead or announced when someone was about to die.
That's not coincidence. That's the human brain arriving at the same conclusion from the same evidence. Something that lives in the dark. Something that moves without sound. Something that watches you with eyes that don't blink. Something that screams like a dying person in the middle of the night. What else could it be? But here's what makes this genuinely fascinating. The fear wasn't irrational. Owls are apex predators of small animals. And for most of human history, human children were small animals. Documented cases exist of large owl species, like the eagle owl, carrying off small children. The same talons that can crush a rabbit's skull can do serious damage to a human face. Ancient humans living in open camps had real, documented reasons to keep their children away from the tree line at night. The myth carried a survival warning inside it. This is what anthropologists call functional fear, a belief that seems superstitious on the surface, but encodes genuine environmental information. Don't go near the owl's territory at night. Don't let children wander toward the trees after dark. The story about death omens was the ancient version of a safety instruction.
Your ancestors weren't primitive for fearing owls. They were paying attention. And the fear ran even deeper than survival. Owls hunt alone. They mate for life, but operate in silence and solitude. They're never seen in groups. They don't flock or swarm or announce themselves. In cultures built entirely around the collective, around the fire, around the group, an animal that thrives alone in the dark represented something philosophically threatening.
It represented a world outside the group, a world where the rules didn't apply. That's why owls didn't just mean death in ancient mythology. They meant the unknown, the crossing point, the place between what you understand and what you don't. The Greeks associated owls with Athena, goddess of wisdom, because wisdom and the unknown live in the same territory. You only need wisdom when you're facing something you can't explain. And for most of human history, the owl was exactly that. Something you couldn't explain. Something that lived where you were most afraid. Something that watched you without blinking and disappeared without a sound. Today, we know what owls are. We've studied their feathers and mapped their hearing and filmed them in slow motion and put them in wildlife documentaries with calming narration. And they're still unsettling. Because the part of your brain that hears a barn owl scream at 2 a.m. doesn't know about wildlife documentaries. That part of your brain is 300,000 years old. And it's telling you the same thing it told every human who ever lived before electricity. Something is out there, and it already knows where you are.